Hello everybody, Realm Builder Guy here, and welcome back to another exciting for me at least, Crusader Kings 3 guide. And before, again, getting into it, thank you for everybody liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you don't mind leaving a like or comment and or a subscription, it will really help the channel get seen and known and grow, which is something I would really like to see happen. So thank you so much for that. Also, if you don't mind, go check out the links down in the description. You'll find Twitter and Discord and everything down there, so go check those out as well. So, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about today's guide. And as you well know, because you've seen the thumbnail and the title and so on, you clicked on this. It is a guide to Britain in 867. So, got to get this out of the way. Yes, I know it's controversial to say Britain when you're talking about this right here. My wife and I, we lived in Scotland, and I completely understand the differences and what you do or don't like to be called. So apologies to anybody from Cornwall, Wales, England, Scotland, or Ireland, but I couldn't very well call this the guide to England, Wales, Cornwall, Scotland, and Ireland, because that would have just been too long. So we're going to go with Britain in 867, and I hope you will, I'm sorry, okay? But anyway, we're going to get going here. We're going to start, of course, with the most prominent one, and that is down here in the south of England in Wessex. We're starting with Ethelred Ethelwulfson of Wessex, who's the current petty king. It's duchy tier realm, but let's just call him king of Wessex. Now, he became king in 865. We are now in 867, and his reign ended in 871. He was at constant war with the Vikings, and his reign, and when he came to power in 865, coincided with the landing of the Great Heathen Army, which was being led by the supposedly legendary sons of Ragnar Lothbrok. Now, he didn't really achieve a ton of things except one major accomplishment in his life, and that was creating a unified coinage with Mercia. And the reason why this is important, because it was the first unified coinage and unified anything of southern England, and this kind of would then be a catalyst to bigger and better things, and finally to the unification of the English petty kingdoms into one England. Now, after 871, his brother came to power, and he is currently the Earl of Dorset, and it is Alfred the Great, and he is great. Look at these attributes. 20s, 19, some prowess. He's intelligent. This is a congenital trait. I mean, this guy is just, and he's only 18. He's married. No kids yet. But that can come. I mean, this dude is legit powerhouse. So, we'll go with him. He's got a ton of claims, as one is to expect, including, of course, Wessex itself, but he'll only get it if his brother dies. Now, what is so great about Alfred the Great? Well, he began his reign in constant warfare with the Vikings. That is something, if you've watched either The Last Kingdom or the TV show Vikings, his name comes up a few times. So, obviously, the Viking Age and constant battles and warfare against the Vikings until basically winning the Battle of Edington in 878, and then created Danelaw, which is, I guess, is supposed to be Jorvik or York up here at this time. Now, he still had to deal with constant conflict from the Vikings, raiding parties coming across here from the mainland of Europe, but for the most part, that was the big victory. Now, he also reformed the tax system, the military, and the legal system within Wessex, and eventually then leading to England. The house from whence he comes is the House Wessex, also known as the House Cerdic, which was founded in 519 and ruled Wessex and England directly until about the 11th century. And technically faded away around 1125. But all kings of England and Great Britain since Henry II have traced their lineage to this dynasty. So this is the key dynasty, the founding dynasty of England that everybody kind of refers to. Now, there's so much more I could talk about when it comes to Alfred the Great, but, you know, this isn't an Alfred the Great guide. This is a Britain guide, and there's a ton to get into. So what could you do as Wessex? Well, you could start as Ethelred, but that's not the interesting one. I mean, he's pretty good. I mean, Stewardship 24 is pretty amazing, but you're going to want to start as Alfred. You're 18. You can bring up your heirs. And as Wessex, you can honestly really quickly roll anybody around you. But again, the Vikings are there, and it's something you have to be aware of. Now we're going to move next over here to King Dumnarth II of Cornwall, historically also known as Dunyarth or Dungarth, but he was the last king of Cornwall. So this is kind of it. This is where the Cornwallian dynasty, the House Cernio, and again, I will mispronounce things here because, believe it or not, I am not fluent in Gaelic or Welsh or anything like that, so just bear with me here. But he was the last king of Cornwall. He drowned in 875. Now, supposedly it was an accident, but supposedly some think it could have also been an execution because he allied with the invading Viking armies against Wessex, because obviously it's Cornwall. You're all the way out here. There's only one way to go, and that is east to Wessex. So you kind of have to ally with the people that don't like Wessex. But that was kind of the end of King Dumnarth. So what are you going to do here as Cornwall? Well, probably the same thing. Maybe look at an ally, maybe an ally with Wessex. That may be a little bit smarter. Now, the issue, he does have a child, so he has an heir. He does have a sibling as well. He's not married. He's 37. He's okay as a ruler. But I would look over here across to Wales and expanding that way, or maybe to northern France. But your options are a little tight because Wessex is pretty strong and the Vikings are coming too, or are basically already there. So it's a difficult start. So now we're going to go to the other side of Wessex, to East Anglia, and we've got King Edmund. Now, not a ton is known about King Edmund as far as him coming to power. Not really anything at all, but he is rather famous. He is called Edmund the Martyr, or Saint Edmund. He was actually killed by the Great Heathen Army in 869 by Ivar the Boneless and his brother Ubba in rather extreme circumstances. Supposedly, he was beaten, then shot full of arrows, and finally his head chopped off. So, hey, Edmund. But the reason why he's so famous is because he was one of the most venerated medieval saints and had a true cult following. So the cult of Saint Edmund and Edmund the Martyr. Is he one that I would play with? Well, it's going to be a little bit tough because you're already at war with Ivar the Boneless. And, I mean, your army's not bad, but there's a good chance you're going to get rolled by the Vikings. If not by them, well, Wessex is too powerful. Mercia is too powerful. It's a tough one, but it's an interesting character to talk about. Now we're going to move right over here to Mercia, who are at war with the Vikings, with Ivar and his brother Halfdan, who we will talk about as well. And now we've got King Berghead of Mercia. Again, not one that a ton is known about. You can see his parents. It's kind of like, father, grandfather, not a lot is known. They've got a pretty good army way over the domain limit, so you're going to have to figure that one out. Got no children, 37 years old. He's okay. In real life, what happened to him was, he allied with Wessex first to battle against the Welsh on their western front, but he was eventually driven from the throne in 874 by the Vikings. He fled to Rome, where he died. The Vikings then installed a puppet king of Mercia to take over. I'm not going to lie, this is a tough start. Powerful Wessex to the south. You're already at war with the Vikings. You've got the Welsh over here to the west of you, or Northumbria, just to the north. Northumbria also at war with the Vikings. It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, Cornwall is probably a better start than Mercia at this point, but possible. Well, you got to get out of the war with the Vikings first before you can think of any expansion. What can you do there? Ally with Wessex, ally with the Welsh, ally with Northumbria. Try to ally as much as you can. Your problem is you got no kids. It's going to be a difficult one for sure. Now, moving over, speaking of the Welsh, let's take a quick look at Wales. So we've got some smaller ones right here. We're going to look at Gwent and Deheubarth. And again, I am going to butcher these names, just so you know. And you can see the house Morganwig. Now, Morganwig wasn't really a house as much as it was a kingdom that got created by these two counties or entities, petty kingdoms. So formation in the 10th century of Morganwig. So that's where that house comes from. So it does become a pretty decent player in this region in the Middle Ages. Then if we go just to the north, here to Brycheiniog, again, pronunciation, I don't speak Welsh, so deal with it. Now, the person you have here is Lord Elised. Now, Lord Elised could be, maybe, doing some research that he was the last in the line of the Powys kings, the true Powys kings. The house being significant level of splendor does lead me to believe that that's probably who this is supposed to be. 57 years old. You got a couple of kids. You're not married. Kind of an average character. But you've got a son who's pretty good. So, yeah, these three right here are tough. These are all tough starts here because you've got the powerhouse here in Gwynedd, plus you've got Mercia, Wessex, and, of course, the Vikings coming as well. Now, next, we're going to move over here to Lord Gwygon of Ceredigion. Again, I'm butchering these names. I'm sorry, but so be it. Now, he was actually the son of King Murik, and he died by drowning crossing a river while fighting against the Vikings. The notable thing about him is his sister, right here, is actually the princess of Gwynedd. So his brother-in-law is the king or prince of Gwynedd, who I will talk about as well in a minute. And then the last small one to talk about here is Lord Hyfed of Dyfed. Hyfed of Dyfed. Anyway. Old Welsh family, they allied with Wessex for protection, but eventually they got absorbed, actually, by the aforementioned kingdom of Morganwig here. But the big one in Wales is really Gwynedd, and we've got Prince Rodri II the Great of the Aberfraw House. Again, this is the last time I'm going to say it. Names, butchering them. Now, he has an interesting claim, not just to the south, but the Isle of Man, the Earldom of the Mun. Isle of Man, the reason why is because that's where his father is from and is the ancestral homeland of all Gwynedd kings. So, just an interesting thing there. He's got a lot of titles. He's over the domain limit, has a ton of kids, so no worries there. He's pretty good overall. He's actually quite amazing in martial skills. This is a good one to play as strategist, architect, forest fighter, rough terrain expert, skilled tactician. Rodri really is great. He's 47 years old, a lot of kids, so you can continue doing this. So he actually, if we take a look at what made him so amazing is, he kept on growing Gwynedd, fought off the Vikings and the Mercians, but he actually died in battle versus the Mercians, or the puppet king of the Mercians, when they invaded Wales. The biggest achievement is really that he founded the Aberfraw House, and the Aberfraw House is one of the most powerful Welsh dynasties in history, including Llewellyn the Great in the 13th century. You want to check him out. It's a descendant from that house, and they really ruled here. As long as Wales was independent, this was really the ruling house for many, many, many centuries. So now we get to head north. And as we head north, of course, we've got York, or York. And we have Halfdan Whiteshirt, of Jorvik of House Hvitserk. So, few little things here. So, Halfdan, if you've watched the show Vikings, Halfdan Whiteshirt is played as if he's the brother of Harald Fairhair. He wasn't. Halfdan Whiteshirt is also listed as a son of Ragnar. One interesting thing in the sagas, the characters, or the son of Hvitserk and Halfdan, are never mentioned at the same time. And in fact, Hvitserk means white shirt. So many scholars believe that Halfdan Whiteshirt and Hvitserk are actually the exact same people. So, as far as claims go, you've got quite a few claims you can press, including in Upland over in Sweden and so forth. Now, you've got your holdings here in York. You are at war with Northumbria, so keep that in mind. You already have a bunch of children. You are married. A Viking raider, novice hunter, is reckless, fine, skilled tactician, great martial skills, and decent prowess. Now, he is supposedly a son of Ragnar. He was one of the leaders of the great heathen army. He was the first Viking king of Northumbria, and he was the pretender king of Dublin. He actually died in battle in 877, trying to press his Irish claims that he does not, I believe, have here in the game. Unless I'm mistaken. No, he does not. So he doesn't have the claims in the game. In real life he did, and that's really what undid him. But he's the first the first Viking king of Northumbria. So that is one of the sons of Ragnar. Interesting is Ubbe, who we talked about. He is actually a courtier at the court here for Halfdan. So two Ragnar brothers. The other ones here is Sigurd Snake in the Eye of Sjælland. So he's over in Denmark. Then you've got Bjorn Ironside of Upland. And of course, Ivar the Boneless, who we will talk about in a second. Next, moving up north here to Northumbria and King Aelle. Now, King Aelle is one of those historical characters that there isn't really a ton of record there. You don't really know where he came from. You don't know how he got to the throne. He usurped the throne. That everybody knows. But what he's famous for is the fact that he was killed, that he killed Ragnar Lothbrok by throwing him in a pit of snakes. And that supposedly got Ragnar's sons all up in arms and led to the great heathen army coming across, and he being killed via the Blood Eagle ritual in 867. Though some say he died in the Battle of York in 867, there's also some research that suggests that the Blood Eagle was more symbolically meant as a amalgamation of multiple ways of possible dying, including laying face down in the ground while crows and vultures and eagles pick at your back and expose your lungs and everything that way. So it could be feasible that it is in reference to him dying at the Battle of York. Either way, the dude dies in 867. We start in 867. He is in a two-front war against Jorvik to the south and Ivar the Boneless to the north. It's a really, really tough start. As far as Jorvik goes, that's a really brilliant start. I would try to eat up as much as Northumbria and Mercia as possible, roll into East Anglia, become super powerful, and then take on Wessex, and then, take over the Welsh as well. But that is the strategy to go for there. Knock out Northumbria first. I mean, look at your army. You got almost 6,000. These guys have 976. I think you can take them. So if we move north, now coming to Scotland, in Strathclyde. Now, it was only called Strathclyde after 870. It was actually the Kingdom of Alt Clut, one of the oldest kingdoms, British kingdoms. It was founded in the 5th century and lasted until about 1030. Now, the reason why it changed its name from Alt Clut to Strathclyde is because this king here, King Artgal, lost the fortress of Alt Clut to Ivar the Boneless, moved inland, and then they just renamed it to Strathclyde. Now, he was assassinated in 872 by the King of Alba, who I'll talk about here in a second, or the King of the Picts, King of the Scots, however you want to call it. There are a few reasons why that's speculated. One is actually right here, Rune Altglut, who is next in line, who is actually the brother-in-law of the King of Alba. And possibly also because he allied with Ivar the Boneless, but either way, he was assassinated by the Pictish king. Now, what you could do here as Strathclyde is try to not die. That would be a good strategy. The nice thing is Northumbria is in war. You can gobble up some land here. I would say probably best to try to ally with Alba, but it's going to be difficult. It really is going to be difficult. So this is a tough start, no doubt there. Now, Alba, on the other hand, not Scotland. This is a little bit easier start, even though it's still not easy because the Vikings get really powerful really fast. And we talk about King Constantine II, who in some annals was also called King Constantine I, King of the Picts, King of Alba. He actually died in 877 fighting the Vikings, but he was a member of the Alpin clan, or the Alpin dynasty, that ruled for about 200 years. And he was succeeded not by one of his children, but instead by his brother, Ait, the Duke or High Chieftain of Moray. Again, this is a kind of a theme you'll see throughout the British Isles at this time. Everyone's fighting against the Vikings. Now, he's not at war right now against the Vikings, also because the super powerful 6,200 soldiers from Ivar the Boneless, they're fighting everybody to the south. So, you know, what you could do is try to take over Strathclyde as one, or Orkney as well, because they're not allied with anybody to start with. So this could be a Norse chieftain that you could take over. But really, in the beginning, it's about lasting and surviving. So now, moving over here to one of the most interesting characters of the period, Ivar the Boneless. Another son of Ragnar. He's also referred to as Imar, I-M-A-R, in the Irish Chronicles, because he had a lot of dealings in Ireland. He had land in Ireland, as you can see down here, Dublin, as well as the Isle of Man. And he founded, actually, the one of the greatest dynasties of that age, the Uí-Imar, or of Imar, the descendants of Ivar dynasty. And they ruled the Irish Sea until about the middle of the 11th century, when the last descendants still were in control of Dublin and finally got driven from there. Now, you've got quite the army, including 5,000 special soldiers. For me, the strategy here is, he's at war. If we scroll out, he's at war with Northumbria, and then war here with East Anglia, which is historically accurate. I would continue those wars, take over East Anglia, maybe let Jorvik deal with Northumbria. Once you have East Anglia taken, then turn to Northumbria. I would then also conquer Strathclyde and Alba, and maybe split the British Isles between you and your brother in Jorvik. Give him everything to the south. You take the north and Ireland. You're so powerful. And again, Ivar, an absolute fantastic martial leader. And he was in real life too. He was a commander of the Great Heathen Army that really changed the course of British history. So now, of course, we got to move over to Ireland. We're going to talk about probably the most significant ruler first here in Meath, and that is Chieftain Ait McGormith of the House Neil. But it's actually the O'Neill, the Northern O'Neills. There were Southern O'Neills and there were Northern O'Neills, and he was the leader of the Northern O'Neills, became the King of Ailech and High King of Ireland, tracing his lineage to Niall of the Nine Hostages. Constantly he was at war with the Norse and the southern rivals, but he did conquer a lot of Ireland eventually, and again became High King of Ireland. Now, Ireland's great if you want to get to know how to play CK3, because you tend to get left alone. Yeah, you have some Viking raiders and so on. 1066 is a lot easier start than 867, but it's a great place to learn all the mechanics and start conquering some of your neighbors pretty quickly. And we're going to talk about some of these neighbors. With Neil and Meath, with 8, just start picking off your neighbors one by one. I would go after Ulster, then Oriel, then Braefney, Connacht, and start working your way south. Now, if you start in the south, you've got two interesting houses to choose from. You've got the, Eoganacht house in Desmond and one in Thomond. These are actually the royal houses of the kings of Munster. So that would be an interesting one here as Desmond or Thomond to try to overtake Ormond, Ossory, and Leinster and kind of build a kingdom of Munster to rival the O'Neills of the north. Now these neighbors, you have the Dalburn house, which was the historical house of the native kings of Osraige or Ossory. Next to them, you have the Kinsellas, as it would be anglicized, the Kinselec family or dynasty. They were the historical kings of Leinster. Then if you move to Connacht and Braefney, you can see here Bruin, another Bruin as well. So these are of Bruin, O'Briens, and these were the ancient king or the kings of ancient Connacht or the kings of Braefney. So you have a lot of significant houses in Ireland. Really, the story is the same. If you want one that's a little bit stronger, I would probably, and the most historically powerful and significant one is definitely 8 of the House O'Neill. Here in Meath, you already have 2 decent-sized provinces, and you can try to bring them together by taking over Braefney first and then rolling over the next ones. That's kind of the strategy I would do. The other one I would look at is starting down here. Probably is Thomond. They have the strongest military to begin with, and start conquering your neighbors there and building the kingdom of Munster. So that's a quick, even though it's not quick, it's still almost 30 minutes, overview guide to Britain in 867. I hope you found it interesting and helpful to pick another interesting, start to a new campaign and see what you can do. Can you make Ireland whole? Can you do a complete Viking takeover of the British Isles, a powerful Welsh kingdom, help Cornwall be something, or make Alfred the Great truly great and bring about a unified England? So let me know what you've done there so far down in the comments below. Hit like if you enjoyed this. Subscribe if you're new to not miss anything. Until next time, I'm Realm Builder Guy, and I will talk to you soon.